And it began with me. My first thought was, well, what will my first podcast be about? I have so many different topics, so many different avenues I can go. Do I want to be specific? Do I want to talk about only this or only that?
Mhm.
And upon meditating and praying, I kept hearing the truth, the truth. So I was like, well, what? Everything's the truth. And I was like, oh my goodness, the truth about what I've gone through, about who I am.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. Lino, you and I have been trying to get together for so long. I was trying to remember. I think
It's been at least a couple months, I would say, something like that.
Oh, yeah, maybe more.
Maybe more, yeah.
Yeah, because it was before I went on vacation, which was in July, and here we are in September. So,
oh wow, yeah, wow.
Yeah, so I'm happy that you and I finally get together. Today is episode 84. And I am talking to Dr. Lino Martinez. And yes. Dr. Lino, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Lucinda. I'm happy to be here finally.
Yeah, really. I'm glad we finally met up. So tell me, I looked at your Podmatch profile, and you have a book and podcast.
Yes.
That are named the same thing. And then I was interested in your whole cognitive psychology degree too. And then your personal story, it sounds so fascinating. Is not a good word really, but compelling. Compelling is a good word.
Thank you.
So start where you want to start, because I want to hear your story.
Yeah, so I'll start with my podcast. The reason I created my podcast is to motivate people. I do have my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I'm not practicing clinical psychology because I decided to change my life purpose. And that came after a series of obstacles that I faced in my life, including being born with a rare genetic disease that's statistically 1 in a million. It's called the Muckle-Wells syndrome. If people want to Google it, Muckle. Second word, Wells, Wells, and syndrome. It's statistically 1 in a million in the US and 1 in every 500,000 in Europe. So being that it's such a rare disease, it took 36 years for them to find a diagnosis. And by the time they had found a diagnosis, I had already undergone about 30 surgeries within 8 years or so, and basically saving my life. The disease, it's an autoinflammatory, it's like an autoinflammatory disease. And if it's not taken care of or managed properly, it can start to cause an atypical paralysis, tumors, cancers, all kinds of stuff. In my case, it started to cause a lot of atypical paralysis. And by the time I was 26 years old, I wasn't able to pee. I just couldn't pee. My muscles weren't working. And so after a series of a lot of surgeries, they were unable to save my urinary bladder. And by 33 years old, I had to complete what's called a radical cystectomy. And that was a complete removal of my urinary bladder, my appendix, about 30 inches of my small intestine. And it was all in one huge lump surgery of 13 and a half hours at UCLA. incredible doctors saved my life there. I had 3 blood transfusions. I was there for about 17 days, and it took about 5 years to heal from that. So, and when I say 5 years to heal, I mean when you're constantly having a lot of surgeries, you're not walking, you got tubes
Mm.
coming out of your abdomen, you're not really eating well, and you become homebound and bedbound. And so I lost a lot of my muscle mass, became very atrophied in a lot of different areas of my body. It keeps going and going and going and going, and that's why I wrote a book. But what made me actually write the book were so many doctors and nurses telling me, my goodness, how are you sitting here in bed smiling after everything you've done? You got to write a book. You got to write a book. How do you keep going? How do you keep going? And the only answer I ever have for people is it's within me. It's like it's in my soul and spirit. But I'll tell you why I feel that way at the end of this story here. So, oh geez, I had lost my voice. The disease when it was progressing, and it started very slowly. It started with the granuloma on my vocal cord, and then it progressed to masses in my larynx, and I couldn't talk at all. And the doctors were, I mean, it hurt to even make any sound. So whether it was even breathing, any type of movement
Oh.
that anything that moves your vocal cords, everything's
Hmm.
all together. So any even
Hmm.
breathing was hurting. So I couldn't really walk. I couldn't do anything. So doctors started injecting Botox, and this is awake too. It's very painful having Botox injections straight through my neck. And what Botox does is it can relax the muscles that area because there was so much pain in that area, and I already couldn't talk. So they're like, you already can't talk, so this is just going to add to not being able to talk.
Hmm.
And it helped. The Botox it kind of like numbs the nerves. It
Uh-huh.
relaxes the nerves, and when nerves are constantly tense, they end up hurting. They're like this all the time.
Yeah.
And so the Botox relaxes it. So the pain was less, but with less pain, I mean, it still didn't stop the paralysis. So I was without a voice for about 2 years, and in between, there was an off and on depression that I went through. But I knew that, I mean, even having my bachelor's degree in communication, I was like, I got to find a way to communicate. This isn't. I'm not going to be writing everything out. Yeah, I'm a writer and I love writing, but this is not the way to communicate. So I asked my father he would help me out financially to go to science school. So he paid for it. Luckily, I'm so grateful to have him still. And he helped me through 2 years of sign language. And in between then is when I met the deaf community, and they welcomed me wholeheartedly. They didn't understand that I had pain in my vocal cords, or they didn't really understand that it hurts to talk. They don't even know what talk is.
Hmm.
So the only thing I said is, I don't talk, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, neither do they, So
Right.
I got along just well, and got along with them well, and they were very welcoming, and that's really where my passion started to change. I was like, you know what, I need to be if my voice comes back, I'm going to be the voice for the voiceless. I got to help the deaf community. They help me, and it was also within that time that I started writing my book. And then the pandemic happened. So I was able to finish my book during the pandemic with less stresses of things having
Hmm.
to do. And so here I am today, 104 episodes later on my podcast, a year and a half. It's been a year and a half since I started my podcast. And it started with a very painful speaking and only like 15-minute interviews. And now I can talk for an hour or two and I rarely get any more pain. So, but there's a lot more to say to that.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'll stop there and let you and let you think about that for a minute.
Wow. Well, what I was thinking is, did you have to do exercises? Did they do surgeries?
Yes, I had surgeries to remove the masses. There were 3
Hmm.
masses in my larynx,
Hmm.
and then afterwards, I had speech therapy, 3 different
Mm.
types of speech therapists, and then just doing it on my own, doing voice exercises,
Hmm.
do a lot of hum. That tends to, it's
Hmm.
like an instrument. You're kind of tuning your instrument with the vowels of
Hmm.
the alphabets.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. So tell about your book.
Yeah, so my book is called A Little Less Fear. I came up with the title of the book before. That's actually the title of the podcast as well, but the
Mhm.
book title came first. And I wrote it because I noticed when I was writing that almost everything was written, everything that I'd gone through in my life was an obstacle of fear. Okay, I gotta go through this. You gotta have no fear. You gotta just do this. You gotta just do this. So everything was just do this, but it was always breaking a fear, breaking a fear. And
Mhm.
with just a little less fear, there was more acceptance and more love and a path that I could see. So yeah, one thing I can't forget to tell you, I'm also transgender. I lived the first 34 years of my life as a female.
Mhm.
And when I was going through all the surgeries in the hospital, when I was in the hospital all the time, I started YouTubing and all this word transgender came out. I was like, what is that? What is transgender?
Mhm.
And I remember always feeling like I was a guy inside. I was like, wait, so I'm not crazy that I feel like a dude inside? I was like, oh my goodness, you mean this is a real thing? And I remember thinking when I was in the hospital, you know what? If this disease is going to take me, I'm not going to die in the wrong body. I'm going to die in the right body. And so at the time, the fears that I ever had about telling my parents, I was a female, a lesbian identified at the time. And I was really, I had a hard time, my family accepting me as a lesbian. And I was like, geez, well, how are they going to accept me like this? I was like, you know, at this point, it doesn't matter. I had this incurable genetic disease, and what matters is my happiness. And so I started my transition during the surgeries and healing and wellness and all that. And lo and behold, you know, if you become your true self, as you heard the cliche many times, doors will start opening. Be true, be true, be true, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself, be authentic, be authentic, be authentic. What
Right.
did that mean to me? And when I started to become authentic, my voice started to be heard. I started to, I found my higher self, my higher purpose. I found angels. I found God. I found love, true love within myself. And doctors, I found the right doctors, the right medications. Like everything started lining up, and that also comes from self-love, because when you have a lot of self-loathe, you're going to be vibing at a low vibration and you're going to attract more
Mhm.
low vibing stuff. So as a
Mhm.
low vibing female, that's what I was attracting. Yes, the low vibing female still got me 4 different degrees in education. I'm very happy that she did that for me. But as a person and as a spirit, I wasn't blooming or thriving. I was dying. And
Right.
so now I'm 42 years old, going to be 43 in January. I can honestly say I know what it's like to live a full life as a female. I don't know what it's like to live a full life as a male yet. I mean, I have 8 years in. I still am very young. I've been single since I started my transition 8, 9 years now.
Mhm.
I don't even know what it's like to be in a relationship as a man. I only know how to be in a relationship as a young man with myself. And here I am today being interviewed by you, Lucinda, and you're opening the doors for me to keep motivating and speaking up. So thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness, that's so fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
love I love that because I mean, my life story is boring compared to yours, but that has always been like a life theme for me is to learn to love myself. And I think that maybe that's part of a lot of people's struggle is learning to love themselves. In fact, I don't know if this is really true, but it seems to me that it's almost everybody's struggle is to learn to love.
Yeah, you know what? It is everybody's struggle, and I think it's just this time and age, because I'm not. I mean, I can't speak for thousands of years ago. I don't have a memory to go back that way, that
Right.
far. But I'm not sure if people that were spiritual, like the Mayan culture, or the
Mhm.
Egyptians, or the Aztecs, people that were very spiritual and in tune with their higher self, if they experienced such low human loathing, self-loathing, I think that when you do connect with spirit and your higher self, and you understand that spirit loves you no matter what you look like, no matter who you are, what you've
Mhm.
gone through, and they see you in the light of love. And when you could see yourself in that light of love, anything and everything is possible.
Oh, yes, that's so true. Yes, I love that because it's once I started to love myself, then my life started to get a lot easier. I opportunities opened up for me. I began to be more creative.
Yes.
So and yeah, so now I don't know how long it's been since I published my book in 2017, but I quit teaching at least at the public school level. I did teach a few classes at the college level, but I got to write my book. I got to start my blog. I got to, I just did it. It was like all this blossoming of creativity that happened once I realized, oh, I'm not really, I need to be more creative. I need to write a book. I need to, I need to do these other things other than getting up 4 o'clock in the morning and getting home at 5 or 5:30 at night and going to bed at 8 o'clock and then
Yeah.
doing the whole thing again, because I taught my last 5 years, I taught at a school that's an hour away in Douglas, Arizona, which is a border town school. And I loved the school district, but I did not love the hour drive, the 91 miles a day or 92 miles a day that I was driving. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be brutal.
Yeah. Good thing I had just purchased a Prius. So it's like, oh, that's good.
Oh, that is good. Yeah,
And I still have that car too. So that was 2008 is when I quit teaching there. And I still keep in contact with a lot of my students. They were so fantastic. I loved that school district. The parents were so supportive. Unlike the other school that I taught at, which was only half an hour away. But yeah, I realized that while I have been a teacher since I was 18 in one way or another, one form or another, that's really, it's only part of my calling. It's not my whole calling. So yeah, the creativity and it sounds like you have found your creativity too, just by learning to love yourself.
yeah, it just I definitely, absolutely. I mean, I love to create, and creating really is the type of fluidity that everybody has within them, and they will find it once they do open up that path of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also love that you just stood up for yourself and you said, this is not who I am and this is who I am. And you went ahead and had the courage to do that
Yeah.
because some of us don't. We know it's things aren't quite right, but it's hard or we think it's going to be, I don't know, we have this weird story we tell in our head about what's going to happen if we are true to ourselves, that
Mhm.
the world is going to fall apart or something. So I love that it's a little less fear because yeah, I think sometimes we let fear rule our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And fear is toxic, and it's not a good vibration to be under. If you're operating under fear, you're gonna attract things that are vibing that low, which is disease, which is
Mm-hmm.
negative, which is
Mm-hmm.
negativity, and you're gonna attract that in your friends and in your group. It's a disease, really, if you think about it. So
Yes.
it's replenishing to know that you have choice to not live in that fear, and to understand that whatever you start fearing, they becomes your belief. It becomes your belief system,
Right.
and then becomes your character, then becomes your personality, and
Right.
it's overbearing at that point. You could just change it by just make doing some actions and believing that you can.
Yeah. And I like too that it's a little less fear because it's a process.
Hmm.
It
It is a
you
process.
make one step and then you make another step and sometimes it's sad to me that we live in this fast food society where everybody wants their gratification right now and that's just not really how the world works.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So now, are you a practicing Buddhist? Because I noticed that it said that you do Buddhist psychology, that you're interested in that, or that you practice that.
Yeah, so it was Buddhism really that brought me to my higher self, that brought me closer to
Hmm.
where I wanted to be in life.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because in life there's always seeds that your higher self will plant throughout your life, and sometimes it'll take years before you're like, oh, no wonder I had interest in that 20 years ago. It was my higher
Yes.
self planning this, that this was
Right.
going to help me. So with that in mind, I remember my first job. I was 15 and a half, working at a CD store. For if there's young listeners, CDs is a type of disc where you listen music to. Everyone's downloading. No one knows what a CD is these days, it seems. But I
Right.
was selling music cassettes and CDs, and I remember I was putting some away, and I saw this section that's called Buddha Bar, and I was like, Buddha Bar, what's this about? And I bought like 5 CDs, and I was listening to it, and it was like meditation music. But
Mhm.
at 17 or 15 and a half, actually, I didn't understand what meditation was. I grew up being Catholic. I didn't understand any of it, but I still bought them, and I kept it for like 15, 20 years. And so here I am now at 42, and it took me, and I've only been practicing Buddhism for about 3 years. So it took
Mhm.
almost, 20 something years to really find it. But I planted those seeds, my higher self did years ago. And so I'm not as gung ho as I was in the beginning, because I feel that I get it, and I'm understanding what I needed to understand from Buddhism, and
Mhm.
that is basically to love unconditionally, to not
Mhm.
judge anybody, and to live with the most virtuous heart that you can possible, for good karma, to keep planting good seeds for future lives and for everybody around you.
Mhm.
But where I'm at right now with my spirituality, I'm actually working on my psychic abilities. I'm in a mediumship circle once a week, a master mediumship circle, where I get to be on Zoom with 15, 20 other intuits, other psychics from all over the world, from Australia, from Sweden, from the US. And we all do readings on each other.
Mhm.
And I did, it's every Tuesday night actually, and I'm going to join another one on Thursday. So how this is helping me is it's helping me trust my intuition more, trust my angel guides, my spirit guides, and to help other people and teach other people that they too can trust their spirit guides and their energy that's unforeseen. Yeah, it's really amazing. And everyone's got these abilities, by the way. You just have to want to have that part of that muscle, I call it, in of
Mhm.
your mind,
Mhm.
the intuitive muscle. You have to have the urge and the want and the love and the passion to pump it up.
Mhm. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, because when I was a little kid, um, when I got baptized and confirmed in the church that I belonged to, you got baptized when you were 8. If if you were a child of people who were already members of the church, and then the ministers would put their hands on your head to confirm you. Well, when I was confirmed, I now I was 8. Okay, so I said to God, "Well, God, I'll help you in any way you want." And then it was like I got this really wonderful, warm feeling in my heart. And when I opened my eyes, it was like the colors were brighter. And, so I was sort of like in this weird kind of, people might say, weird state. But I kind of started hearing what I called my little voice. And so I would get direction, you know. Um, that I remember this happened once. We moved a lot, and so we moved to this small town, and there were two sisters that the kids in my 8th grade class were really picking on, and so it was like I got this little urging to go be friends with them. And so we'd walk home from school together. And I mean, I don't know if I helped them or they helped me. But it was like, yeah, go be friends with them. And I think I remember somebody said, "Why are you friends with them?" And I said, "Because nobody else is. And everybody needs friends."
Yeah, how
Yeah.
sweet.
And so I was like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know if it changed anybody's mind, and we only lived in that town for 1 year. So I didn't really get to know them as well as I would like to have known them because we moved.
Yeah.
But yeah, my little voice has helped me out a lot. And I don't call it that anymore. It's more like this feeling in my body. Oh, need to go do this or pay attention to that or, you
Exactly.
know, yeah. So that sounds like a really fun
It's your
group.
Jiminy Cricket, as I call it too.
Yeah, right. My Jiminy Cricket, right. Sitting on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that sounds great. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, because I have a theater background. So people, there's that whole Shakespeare quote from Hamlet. I think it's from Hamlet. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And that's how I think of Earth. It's like, well, everybody on Earth is on stage,
Mhm.
but when you go off stage, there's a whole lot more to life than just what the little play that we're all involved in right now. So, Shakespeare, yeah, genius.
It's awesome you mentioned that. I've been listening to a lot of Dolores Cannon, and Dolores Cannon wrote like
Mm,
17 books.
mhm,
She already passed away a while ago. You know
mhm.
Dolores Cannon?
I see her videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's incredible. And she was a
Uh-huh.
hypnotherapist for over 40 years. And a lot of people that she hypnotized and were able to go back to when they passed away, they all say that when they die, they look at life as it being exactly what you said. Everything was just a play. Everyone was playing their part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why you
Yeah.
could change the story at any time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you can ad lib.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah.
can improv. You can improv.
You can improv. There you go.
That's what my husband says life is anyway. Life is an improv.
It is.
So, yeah, that's great. So, now tell a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast, when I first started it, I knew that it was something I had to do. Sometimes I'm still questioning why I'm on this journey of this podcast, but it was the little voice that told me to do it. So I'm following that little voice.
Mhm.
And the only thing I can tell you is that I love motivating people. I love how I feel after I interview someone. I love the fact that it's how it's evolved. And it began with me. My first thought was, well, what will my first podcast be about? I have so many different topics, so many different avenues I can go. Do I want to be specific? Do I want to talk about only this or only that?
Mhm.
And upon meditating and praying, I kept hearing the truth, the truth. So I was like, well, what? Everything's the truth. And I was like, oh my goodness, the truth about what I've gone through, about who I am. So I figured at the time it was important for me to tell people I was transgender. I don't know why. I can't even answer why I feel that was the most important thing. So yeah, I realized it had to be on me being coming out, I guess. I'm not really sure. I guess right now when I'm thinking, maybe it was about insecurities, maybe it was about my family members finding about me, or maybe it was about me seeing the big picture, knowing that eventually I would be interviewing people of all walks of life, and
Mhm.
people, if I was just honest right from the beginning, I'm transgender and I have a genetic disease and I've got invisible disabilities, that it would just be a really great way to just pave the way and be open to so many different topics after that. So I did. And it was challenging. I remember sweating a lot, but I was like, here it goes. And so episode 1 is I'm transgender. And I talk about what I went through and the discrimination and the pain that I gone through as a child. I faced with my mother, always trying to make me really feminine and not allowing me to dress like a boy and forcing me to wear makeup and clothes and criticizing me if I didn't wear makeup. It was really an awful experience, but she didn't know. I wrote
Right.
about it in my book too. After she asked me to forgive her after my transition, because she now sees why I fought her so much as a kid.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's definitely closure there, and I'm grateful that I was able to have this platform to open up and tell the truth.
Well, and isn't it great that she was open-hearted and open-minded enough to go, "Oh, I made a mistake."
It took
Because
her about 2 or 3 years, but yeah, she did it.
yeah.
Yeah, I lived about 2 or 3 years in the beginning of my transition, not talking to any of my family members.
Mhm.
And my mother finally came around, and then my father was the last one to accept it. Actually, he now accepts it, but he was so hurt and in pain, and he just said I was the only daughter, and I was a beautiful girl, like super beautiful. So
Mhm.
to him it was like she died, and I was like, wow, well, no, she's still inside me. I'm just, that's a spirit. There was the same spirit is in there, but he
Mhm.
doesn't understand in terms of spirit and stuff. He just understood in what a father-daughter relationship is like, and I still grieve that relationship. It'll never be the same. He doesn't hug me the way he used to. Now it's a pat in the back instead of an embrace.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's just there's some grieving that still I still have when I see him, but there's still love there, and we're able to talk, and that's really what matters.
Yes, really. Well, I mean, isn't it kind of interesting, or I think it's sad, that a lot of men they don't hug each other. They don't, the affection that they show their daughters is different than the affection they show their sons. I was fortunate, and my father was not like that. I have one brother and two sisters, and he hugged us all, but he was a really unusual kind of guy. So, but I think that's sad because, men need affection and understanding and appreciation just as much as women. They need
Yeah.
touch just as much as women.
Mhm.
But I don't know how that all got started, that men had to be macho. Because I think that traps men too. I think it
It
traps.
does. It traps. Yeah. And if you think about it right now, as I'm petting my cat, he's a male cat and I have a female cat. It's like I pet them the same. I love them the same,
Hmm, hmm.
so I mean, it's the energy that you love.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe we're coming out of that now because I've read some articles about the alpha male as opposed to the omega male, and how the omega male is actually more emotionally intelligent and probably the one that's going to help change the world because
Yeah.
they're not so ego driven and you know yeah, so I've been very fortunate to know quite a few omega males who are, they know who they are and it doesn't really matter if other people don't understand them, and they're loving and kind, and they manage their emotions pretty well, and yeah, so
Yeah. Well,
that's
times are definitely changing. And I do feel that this new generation of like people in their early 20s and even under, they're somewhere completely different than I was 20 years ago, and they're more accepting with people's fluidities. So
mhm.
I'm grateful to see that this change is happening and that it's a positive change.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, I'm a lot older than you. And yeah, I'm grateful for that too.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I'm sure you've seen it come a long way.
not as far as I wish it was, but yes.
Yeah, but change is happening faster than it ever has been before.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes you have to go through some hard times before you wake up to what really needs to happen,
Sure.
or how you need to change your life. Because we hang on to old stuff and we don't want to, we oh we vacillate back and forth, and then finally you have a crash and burn, and it's like, oh, I guess I have to do something about that now.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So I don't want to have any more crashes and burns. I just want to just want to move forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this has been so fun. Do you have anything else that you want to say?
I don't, not at the moment. Let's see here. I'm really grateful to be where I'm at right here, right now. And I
Oh,
hope that people get the chance in their life, at least once, to know the beauty of the feeling of being grateful. And it's just really, it opens up everything when you become grateful for even the smallest things.
yes, I love that. Yeah, gratitude is a really important thing.
Mhm.
So now I am going to put in the show notes all your social media, any social media, and your podcast link. And then and the all about your book and the disease that you mentioned. Anything else that I should put in the show notes?
No, actually, they can find all of that on my website at www.alittlessfear.com. On my website, you can find where to get my book. It's on Amazon and Kindle. That also has direct links to Instagram, my blogs, all of my podcast episodes. Everything's on my website.
Okay, great. Yeah, isn't it nice to have one central location for everything?
Absolutely.
I
Yes,
I
it
love
is.
that. I love that. Oh, Lino, this has been so
It has been amazing, Cinda.
wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much for
much.
your time. I really appreciate being on your podcast. This is amazing. You keep going. That's incredible that you're over 80. Keep it going, and keep motivating and keep loving what you do. It's amazing.
So, yeah, I like motivating people too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.